Good afternoon, gearheads. Welcome to Speed City F1.
It's not the middle of the night.
I know, it does feel a little bit strange, but it also feels a little bit awesome.
Yeah, it does. 2 in a row.
That's right. We're not having to caffeinate to get ready to go.
But I tell you what, you don't need to caffeinate for this one. It has got all the ingredients. Yeah. All the ingredients.
Yes, and our show has tons of ingredients too. This Jon Massengale, that's Jonathan Green. Chris Medland is going to be joining us from Mexico City here in just a moment. Bob Varsha is going to join us in the post-race show. And first thing I want to talk about is that we have a fantastic interview, another fantastic interview with Pato O'Ward, who, in my opinion...
He's the world's most interesting motor racer.
He's definitely the best interview in motorsports right now, and we're going to play that in the second segment.
Connor, we don't really mean that.
Well, as far as, race drivers at the top of their game in an interview, he is fantastic.
He's fantastic.
He gets very blunt about his Formula One aspirations.
That, I think, is what I like about it. There's no, right. If you ask Pato, hey, whose fault was it? He'll tell you his opinion.
Well, he's got a very interesting opinion about Formula One, his career at Indy, and all that. So we're going to play that in the second segment. And, of course, we're going to get you ready. We've got an hour to go before the race. We're going to get through all the grid set up, and we're going to go through all of that. And Chris Medland's going to have his microphone out in Mexico City getting interviews for us, both pre-race and post-race. And, of course, stay here for the race because we'll have the BBC of the play-by-play of the entire race.
Hey, we get to go to the grid today.
Yes, we do, because Bob is not with
in
us
Mexico.
He's in Mexico. He's working down there, and he's going to be with us for the post-race show. But when I wrote it down today, it's like we're in round 20, but we still have 4 more after this one. That is a handful of races, isn't it? It doesn't feel long to me, but it's kind of surprising, honestly, that this is our 20th race of the season. I don't know about you.
It is the longest season ever, so it feels like it.
Well, we're looking at the screens, the TV screens, and we're looking at Checo being interviewed, and we got some more things that we're going to talk about. But I want to start with Checo. It's his home race. Unfortunately, I think it's just writings on the wall right now.
It is the Festival of the Dead, and I'm afraid there's dead man walking. And I don't mean I know it's a pun, but man, it's not good, is it?
It's not, and I don't know what he can do to reverse that at this point. I mean, he's been given I don't know how many chances you'd call it this season, but over and over and over, and he has not performed.
Yeah, I did listen to an interview he did, though, after qualifying, and, he just said, I can't get this to work, I can't get that to work, can't get the brakes. Again, Checo's not one for making just an excuse up. And he'd said, I cut an article out that said this is his worst, his form has dropped dramatically. As you saw, he scored 100 and so points in the first few races, and now he's scored 40 in the last 10.
It's just, I mean,
he's outnumbered. Verstappen is now like double points.
Well, and if you just boil it down into dollars, what is this going to cost Red Bull? Because they're going to end up in third in the Constructors' Championship more than likely is what it's looking like.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, how many tens of millions of dollars is that?
And given that they're going through a transition now in the next couple of years, not this next year, but 26, Red Bull are not the mighty power. They've lost a lot of their people. They're getting a new engine. I'm not so sure it's the mighty Red Bull of old.
Yeah. Well, I hear Chris Medland's microphone lighting up out there in Mexico City. Mr. Medland, how's it going out there? How's the weather? How's the paddock?
Both are beautiful, I must say. The sun's just trying to find its way through what's kind of in that sort of hazy cloud cover. We were talking to Tom McCulloch from Aston Martin earlier about strategy and things. He was saying that they thought the sun would come out and warm things up, but there was a chance that some showers nearby wouldn't hit this race, but would mean that there was cloud cover that would keep it much cooler. And that is really important here because obviously with cooling issues, because of the altitude, the lower the temperature just helps teams out a little bit in terms of keeping the tyres in good shape, keeping the brakes in good shape, keeping the power units running smoothly and not overheating. So, there's been a lot of kind of focus on how warm it might get, but it is warming up now. And it's very, very busy in the paddock with all sorts of guests and sponsors and a DJ Monchuk, I can read over my shoulder, who is entertaining the crowds that are having a drink and getting ready for what I think is going to be an epic start to this race.
Yeah, I think that's I agree with that. It's going to be a fantastic race today and a great start. But you know what? I want to talk about something before we get into Mexico City Grand Prix today because, Jonathan, I know you wanted to talk about what happened at COTA last weekend. There's been a ton of discussion for about a week. but you really want to get up on your horse about this.
Well,
this rules that's the pass with Verstappen and Lando.
I had put it to bed. I gave my opinions at Austin. We discussed it with Dave O'Neill, and I'm talking about the lack of consistency between the decisions made by the stewards on Verstappen's behalf and made on the stewards on Russell and other people's, I think it was Gasly's behalf. And that is overtaking on the outside and not giving enough room. There are two rules. And basically, you could sum up Austin in one foul swoop. Verstappen forces Norris wide at turn 1 and takes both of them off the track. Right? That gives Ferrari the lead and the win, effectively, over the course of the race. 4 laps to go, he does it again. But he gets to the apex first. That's the rule. He doesn't break any of the rules, but he goes off track, and that is against the rules, and he should be penalised for it. Maybe Norris should have given the place back because he knew damn well that might not be the case, but he only had 4 laps to go, so he decided to stay where he was. Bottom line is, the only reason I bring it up now is the FIA had a meeting on Friday, a coming-to-Jesus meeting with all the drivers, and said, we'll revise the rulings there, because you're right, it is controversial, and yes, we all want to have some consistency, and we'll get back to you after the Super Bowl. And I'm being pedantic. We'll get back to you at Qatar. Well, great. So he can go to Vegas and do exactly what he did. He can go to Brazil and do exactly what he did, Verstappen.
He can do it today.
He could do it today here in Mexico. And that, to me, is ridiculous. Because he's going to win in the World Championship by following the rules. And he came in this article and said, I play by the rules and I take advantage of them. But that's, you shouldn't be able to come off the brakes and run more speed and go off the track and still hold a place. Everybody's saying it. Everybody agrees. But Verstappen says, well, those are the rules I'm just playing by now. I've done it since I was karting.
Well, and let me be clear. I don't think you're upset with Verstappen. I think you're at all, because
it's a Senna move. It's a Schumacher move. In other words, they look at the rule book till their nth degree because they're like, oh, great, I can do that.
Well, that's smart, right? Those are the rules. All right, Mr. Medland, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree generally on all fronts. So it doesn't always make for great debates, but I think most people agree that you shouldn't be able to just get to the apex first and therefore not worry about making the corner, and you can run wide and you will keep your position if you're defending, or you can complete and overtake if you're attacking. And I've seen the current guidelines that they said they're going to maybe revise, which do say that if you're overtaking on the inside, then you need to have... Well, no, you need to have your car, at least your front axle, at least in line with the mirrors of the car you're overtaking. So you don't need to be fully alongside, just mostly alongside if you're overtaking on the inside. If you overtake on the outside, you have to have your car completely alongside, front axle to front axle. So they make it harder to overtake around the outside by definition. It's already harder to do. You're already taking more risk out there. You're going the longer way round. You don't have control of where the car on the inside goes. So to then put it in writing that it's harder means everyone will always have to get to the inside to make a move, essentially, to really have a good chance of making a move. Max knows that. That's why he defends the inside so firmly. That's why he attacks so aggressively towards the inside. It's not that he couldn't do it on the outside or wouldn't try if the rules said to.
But why would he?
Because the rules are so biased, exactly. So I've got more sympathy for Max in the sense that, he's doing it exactly as he knows he'll get away with. And the flip side, I'd say, I'm not, I'd rather we had a nice, clear decision on how racing was going to go moving forward, and it was an improvement. But I do think that these things shouldn't be rushed because there can be unforeseen circumstances when you do that, and suddenly you open up a different loophole that you've got wrong. For example, right now they don't define when a move is complete, when an overtaking move is complete. So that was the crux of the McLaren argument. I've had a long chat with them this morning that they were trying to get the ruling overturned because they argued that Lando had completely overtaken Max on the approach, that before they hit the brakes, he was more than a car length clear. I can't see the footage that proves that. They say they have GPS data that proves it. But B, they're not actually proving anything because there's no rule that tells you what the line is. Like, when have you or have you not overtaken someone? So you're just talking about different areas of grey there. And I would rather that they get it right or certainly improve it. And if that takes them a bit longer, so be it. Because at the same time, all the drivers can read those regulations. All of them know what the rules are. And yes, Max is exploiting them better than anyone else. But that is good on him. Like, Lando can exploit them in the exact same way if he tries and he's good enough. And up to now, it's almost like he concedes that Max is just better at that. So Max, the term we keep using is Max gets away with it. But he's not getting away with anything. He's executing better than anybody else.
Yep.
Now, I totally agree those rules should be changed, but I won't criticize Verstappen for those. And if anything, I sometimes just start to criticize the other drivers for the way they approach it, knowing what the rules are. Lando's, for example, it's tough. Like, I can't really tell these guys what to do at that speed in that split second. But if you know that that's what Max always looks to do, and you get that high ground, and you know he's going to try and chuck it back down the inside, or very likely to, then why try and outbrake him on the outside?
Yeah.
But why not just use the fact you've got the better line, the better grip, brake as late as you can, yes, but aim for a switchback, because if he's going to go flying through the apex and go off, you've got every chance then of getting him on the exit. Or if you don't, you've stayed on track, so you have the high ground to go, hey, he went off track defending there, he's got to give me that place back. And because it happens so often, it does surprise me that we don't quite see a slightly change in approach from drivers fighting him. So, what I really hope from here on out is that these meetings do lead to improvements. And if we have to wait for a bit longer, so be it. But the main thing is we want to see these guys fighting, racing. We don't want to make overtaking easy, but we don't want to make it impossible either. I
think you just summed that up brilliantly, and I will put it to bed now, but I wanted to get on my high horse because I just feel that the FIA take too long to do anything. Verstappen's quote, by the way, was, I don't make the rules, I just follow the rules as I can. I just implement the rules and play with them. What did Leclerc say as soon as he stepped out of the car? Well, I knew what Max was going to do at turn 1, and that's exactly what he did. So the whole of the paddock knows exactly what Max is going to do on lap 1. Or that's what you described is exactly. And it's up to the others to say, okay, that's your game. I'm going to play your game.
Yep. But I do agree with Chris. We got to get it right. We don't want to rush it and not get it right. But they got plenty of evidence and plenty of discussion. This shouldn't take months, right?
No, it shouldn't. And by the way, Sky did break it down beautifully with Brundle and Caroon, and they showed the graphic illustration that actually Verstappen was overtaken fully, and McLaren are right. He was at least, he was ahead by the whole car as they approached. Then he let off the brakes so he could get to the apex before Norris, and he did. So he's still fine within the rules, but by then he is the overtaker because he's behind.
Yeah, that's important because if you are overtaking on the inside, you need to keep your car fully on track, even if you're ahead at the apex, is what it says. Now, another debate we've had, and I know this could ramble on for a long time, but speaking again to the teams, is the fact that the way that the Turn 1 incident happened as well caused all that debate about, well, was that clean or not? And they seem to have some leniency about whether on the first lap, first corner, you can really be so harsh about, everyone running a little bit wide or something like that. But it was actually that with the Norris penalty, it should have been 10 seconds for going off track, gaining advantage, overtaking someone. And the reason it's going to be 10 is because they tried to stamp down from in the past, and I think rightly so, on drivers pulling off illegal overtakes, going off track to complete it because they're desperate to complete it and they know they're quicker, and then just getting 5 seconds up the road and it doesn't matter. You don't have to legally pass someone. You can illegally pass them and still have the move complete. I want to say Nico Hülkenberg did it in a season finale somewhere where he knew he was going to be stuck behind a car that he needed to beat in the Constructors' Championship. He was quicker than it, but if he didn't get past early, he wasn't going to get past and his race would be ruined. So he got past, but went off track in doing so, got a penalty, but he knew he had the pace to negate that penalty. And they said, okay, the penalty needs to be bigger to stop drivers doing that. So Norris should have had a 10-second time penalty, but because Verstappen had gone off too, they said, well, we give Verstappen like a warning for that. What he did was also wrong. So that then they offset a little bit, and it drops Norris down to a 5-second time penalty.
You're right. We could debate this ad infinitum. I wanted to put it to bed right at the top there because because if it happens now and in Vegas as it did last year, we've only got ourselves to blame because the rules need, they had the meeting. They said they were going to revise the rules, and they said they'll revise or they'll show those revisions to the drivers at Qatar. Well, the championship's won then. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's true, but they will still have all raced to the same rules until that point. It's just who does it better.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we got to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to hear this exclusive interview with Pato O'Ward that Chris did yesterday right after FP1. You're listening to Speed City, back after these messages. All right, we're still live on YouTube. Let's check it out. See what's happening over there. Kevin Kelly, it's race day. Andy P, happy race day, folks. And Kelly says, and the stewards never want to upset the Max.
Hey, we're giving a book away. Tell the world.
Oh yeah, we'll tell them when we come back on
Okay.
on SiriusXM because I want there's more people to know as possible. Andy P says, yeah, the 2 race window the confuses me. You think the FIA would have enough lawyers to get something written down? Russell said, add 1 line in the rule book and we're good. Hey, that shouldn't take that long.
Yeah.
He says, I do agree with Chris. As long as this gets addressed, it's better moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
The driver who's finally willing to take Max's game and throw it back at him is the one who's ultimately going to get the better of him. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I mean, look, and it's not like Max has the only car that can do this now, right? I mean, Max is just playing the game the smartest.
Yeah.
And he's definitely getting the most out of his car.
And the reason we're seeing more of it is because the competition's caught up and now he's having to defend. When he's out front and there's no one to stop him, it's fine.
Yep. All right, we'll give away a Chris book. What's the name of the book again?
It's called
Starting from the Back of the Grid.
That's
Misadventures. I found it. Found it on Amazon.
The Chris Henry one. That's
we're going to give one away.
Have you read it, Chris?
Well, he did the forward, yeah.
I helped him developing it.
Oh,
yeah,
so make a comment about it.
He's an idiot.
Cool. All right. Here it is. Gunther Steiner gets the official forward credit.
Yeah, I'm just one of the kind of quotes a page or 2 in.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can get it on your Kindle for $12 today. Hardcover $38. I guess they don't have the softcover out yet. That's the way that normally works, I think. Cool. Let's see anybody else on YouTube. All right, coming back.
Hello to everyone, this is Gunther Steiner, this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, we're about 42 minutes from the start of the Mexico City Grand Prix in Formula One. Jon Massengale, Jonathan Green, Chris Medland with us. And Chris, I want to go ahead and let you introduce this interview with Pato.
Yeah, so I managed to grab him on Friday. I kind of lined this up nice and early because he's just nice to me. He'll talk to me, which is very helpful. And with his FP1 run, I wanted to get his reaction to it. Very special day for him, obviously, to get to drive in front of his home crowd. So this was after he'd driven the car on Friday. It was actually at the end of Friday, just before he jumped in with the team in engineering, just to kind of get his reaction to how it had been and his hopes for the future.
Patricio O'Ward. Welcome.
One of the only ones that calls me that.
Full names, because it's a very official capacity, because you've just driven in a official practice session at your home Grand Prix here in Mexico City. How was that experience?
It was awesome. Mexico is special. The fans here have so much love for motorsports, for Formula One, and for their racing drivers and their athletes. So it definitely was one to remember, and pretty pleased with how it went. Truly. Obviously, I was not on my own plan. I was testing a lot of different pieces on the car, upgrades, and bit of extra pressure. There's only one, so there was a big emphasis: do not push, or push within reason. But obviously, don't risk anything. And but I mean, it really was. A very good FP1 considering how many accidents and red flags there were, and a lot of running time got cut short. So it felt like I think I ended up doing 3 flying laps on the hard and straight to softs. So it's quite tough trying to get everything out of a race car when you've only got 3 laps.
Well, this is a new track to you as well, certainly in this sort of machinery. So you were 0.3 off Oscar's time on those softs. How happy were you with that, given the fact that, as you say, you weren't pushing too much? And just how happy were you that the team trusted you so much with one set of spares?
No, I mean, like I said, I'm pleased with that because obviously, all these guys have been in the car for full year and more. And it's quite tough to just jump into an FP1 and kind of get on with it, but I'm very pleased with it. I feel very at home with everything that comes with Formula One, and all the switch changes, and it definitely is a bit busier in the helmet versus IndyCar with all the slow laps, fast laps, switch changes, but I didn't really feel like out of place, and I think that's important when doing these things to help the team, because otherwise it's you definitely will be useless if you can't get the team what they need. So I confirm I feel useful this weekend. We got everything done.
Well, I'm sure you were very useful to the team, but also whatever you'd have done, the crowd were delighted to see you out there. Could you hear them going through the Foro Sol when you're in the car?
They were talking to me in the radio, so I can only see people moving, but I couldn't hear them screaming. It was really special. I can after the launch at the end of the checkered flag, I took a bit of a slower lap to appreciate everything. But it goes by too quick, man. I want to drive some more.
Well, yeah, there's a couple more sessions. We'll have a word, see if we can get anyone who has a dodgy taco overnight. You might be back in the car. But let's not wish that on anybody right now. You said you wanted to use this weekend, when I spoke to you last week, to kind of, you were interested to see the growth in interest and the level it would be at here. What have you found coming here this week when you knew you were going to do the FP1? Because you seemed very popular when you went to a mall appearance a few days ago.
That was not expected at all. By anybody that was planning the event. Yeah, even I was like, wow, a lot of people turned up for this. That's great to see. I mean, the people here make you feel like they made me feel like I was Brad Pitt or something. And I'm certainly just a racing driver and smiling around. And I love this sport. I love driving. I love feeling what the pinnacle of race cars are capable of doing. And that puts a massive smile on my face. Even when I just watch them go through the S's, through the quick corners, like F1 cars are just freaking awesome through the high speed. So it's been a wonderful week, really has. It's been really long days, a lot of talking. My throat is getting a bit roughed up, but it has been very worth it because I've been received with so much love and really has been special.
Well, sorry, I'm going to keep you talking for a little bit longer. We've got a few more questions on this one, but then you get to go and do engineering, which is actually the fun part. I know that you get to work with the team on what's been going on this weekend. You said you want to drive the car again. You didn't want to get out of it. Is it guaranteed that you'll get to do Abu Dhabi? Are you hoping at least to get another FP1 outing there?
I think that FP1, no, they haven't told me, but there's a lot of things in F1. There's contracts with other drivers, and obviously I would love to do it, and I'd be so keen on doing that in the test, but it's really not up to me, is it?
Well, hopefully you do get another opportunity, and this one was obviously a big weekend, as we said earlier. The team put a lot of, I guess, faith in you because of the title fight they're in right now. Does it feel like you're kind of making steps towards a potential F1 seat in the future? Yeah,
I mean, certainly within the team, I think they know what I'm capable of, and I think, or I would hope that they think I'm deserving of a seat if something ever were to open up. But yeah, I would say I don't really want to get ahead with anything because it's such a weird world. It works in very mysterious ways. All I can do is really take advantage of my opportunities that are handed to me, and then the rest of it has to be decisions by guys way higher in the ladder than me.
Well, you mentioned something earlier in a print media session here that you were desperate to win the Indy 500 and an IndyCar Series title. Just how much is that your focus and your goal, and how much could that maybe then open doors for you in Formula One as well? Yeah,
I mean, that would be to me that's what I want to do in IndyCar. I've been fighting for the championship. I've been fighting for 500 wins multiple times. But getting it done is another thing, and I would, that for me would represent if doors would ever open up in Formula One, I would comfortably say that I achieved the best in that discipline. And then trying another discipline out, because I feel like that's what life is about. Life is about experiences and, what can you do in your time here? And I feel very grateful to be in a position where I can fight for an IndyCar title. Maybe not very easily the last few years, but I think we're getting there and we're going to get better. Certainly for Indy 500 for sure. And then, accomplishing that and then having a chance at Formula One, like, not many people can say that, but until that happens, then I can say, it did, everything does happen for a reason, but No, I mean, I don't see it out of the cards for sure. Like, I don't see it not happening, but I also don't know when it could happen because it's out of my control.
Well, you certainly did your hopes no harm this weekend, so well done.
Thanks, mate.
Good interview. Brilliant.
Well, he's always so much fun to listen to.
And fascinating. And I do pick up on what he's saying. It's like unfinished business in Indy, and that is totally unfinished business, and he's absolutely capable of winning the title
Or winning the 500. Yep.
Yeah. I tell you what I am noticing, though. He's 25, right? Sorry, I went down the wrong way. He's 25. McLaren have an amazing stable now.
Huh.
Nolan Siegel, 19, California. Christian Lundgaard, I think about the same age. Then you've got Norris and Piastri. And then you've got a host of other McLaren, reserves. They've got such a young team. They could keep this core for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the problem for Pato.
I know. That is.
I'm wondering now if another team would look at him. Because, like you said, he did 3 flying laps. He didn't push because he was told not to. What could he have done?
Yeah, it's true. They said, do not push. Hey, Chris, what do you think about all that with Jonathan about another team or whatever?
Sorry, were you chatting to me then? I cannot hear a thing because I'm in the pit lane with
That's all right.
cars rolling by. So what was the question?
I was just saying, Jonathan was saying, could Pato go to another team?
I mean, potentially, but I really see that his big chance would come from a McLaren opportunity. Let's look at it. It's very unlikely that next year he would win both, but he could. But let's say it takes 2 years to win one IndyCar title, one Indy 500. From that point, as you say, still sort of mid to late 20s, so plenty of time ahead of him. Hugely successful, done everything he needs to do in IndyCar. At that point, you don't know the picture of McLaren anymore. That would have been 4 years, 4 years at that point of Norris and Piastri together. Could it be that there's an opportunity for one of them to go elsewhere? What may have changed, you don't know. So I think that's his most likely avenue, because I think Zach Brown, being the businessman that he is as well as the racer that he is, would see what a great opportunity it would be to have a crossover where you have an IndyCar driver coming to Formula One and racing for his team. Elsewhere, it's just a bit trickier because obviously they don't know Pato that well. He's not been someone they've walked through their stable. It's not that he couldn't do a very good job, but he just won't sit, I think, as high on the list as he would at McLaren, given the investment they've made in him up to now and their knowledge of him. But also, that could change with a big season where he wins both in terms of the 500 and the title. So, not out the question, but I really think, most likely by a long way would be a McLaren team.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is that he was only 0.2 off Perez in his free practice, and he said he only did 3 push laps, and he didn't really do push laps because he was told not to. I'd love to see him unfettered, put it that way, because I do think he's capable of being top 10 every weekend in Formula One, and if that's the case, then he does need to be looked at potentially.
So he's it must be said that he's currently been looking at what he's been doing against Oscar Piastri more than Perez or anyone else. And that did impress McLaren, given the lack of pace he was told to show, if that makes sense. How careful he was told to be, the curbs to stay off, the care to take with the car. And that's a good margin on his first outing here, first time in that car.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That was a really good barometer. So obviously he's still going to push as much as he could within the realms of what the team said he should do. But, I think that was a really strong start. And I did speak to the team about that earlier as well. And they said they were very impressed with him from that point of view. So a lot of happy people with the job that Pato's done so far. Just to give you guys an update, eyes and ears. So I'm currently stood in the pit lane, which is closed to everyone except race cars at this second. Should be able to get moving shortly to go onto the grid. But Lewis Hamilton was very late going out for his final laps of the grid because he came back into the pits and into the garage, which is the unusual part, after his first lap to the grid. So while most cars run through 2 or even 3 times and do a few cycle laps and just check everything's all right and calibrate things, and they have to run through the pit lane to continue to do that because obviously the grid is covered with people, for a car to go into the garage is unusual. So there was obviously something that Lewis wasn't too happy about. They got him back out quickly enough. He hasn't come around to the grid itself yet, but he did, I believe, get out onto track before the pit lane closed. And shortly we should all be released to go over onto the grid itself. But it was an unusual vantage point for me. I don't usually get to stand in the pit lane because you're not meant to, basically. I'll admit that I shouldn't be here. But they opened it early. For some reason, they just didn't want people crossing it a few minutes earlier than normal. So things were already halfway in. I just had to stand by the Red Bull garage and watch everyone roll by.
Nice. Hey, while we got you, you going to want to go to break?
Yeah, but let's do a quick break. And you know what? Let me give out the phone number because you might need this phone number after the break because just take my word. Write it down, 512-643-5483. We might have a little giveaway. Listen to Speed City back after these messages. In the great Pacific Northwest. I love that. Yeah, it's kind of what we said at the beginning of the show, Todd, exactly. Paul Veltum says, thanks for the show, gents. Bob Varsha will be with us in the post-race show, Paul. I think you are a buddy of his.
He's working.
That's right. He's working in Mexico. Kevin Kelly says, might be a boring one-stop race. Stop it, KK. Stop it.
No.
Todd Dauber
says, be a cracker.
Patience, sounds so well-grounded. Pato is what he meant to say. Excuse me. Pato sounds so well-grounded. ADP says Pato has a really good head on his shoulders. Fully enjoy watching him in IndyCar. And Bill Ricker says, listening on SiriusXM so I can sync BBC to ABC TV at the start. Thank you, Bill. We really appreciate that. And I'm not going to take that call in the middle of the show.
Nah.
Let's see. What do we got, Casey? About 30 seconds. Got a minute left. All right.
I'd like to talk to Chris when we get back about
Hello.
About strategy. Are you cool with that?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. And I'll see if I see Mary to talk about it too.
Yeah, I mean, I was fascinated by your.
Hold on, you're dropping out, Chris. Just letting you know. Give us a countdown real quick.
8, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah,
okay.
We got you. 100%.
Yeah, I was particularly interested in what you said yesterday about the first corner. And also, I was told, I think it was Checkered Flags mentioned that in the practice starts, Lando went straight from his practice start down to turn 1 and on the inside, see how much he could get on the inside.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, we're going to talk a little strategy. We're going to talk about this huge, long run down to turn 1 here in just a few minutes. But before that, I want to talk about a really cool Formula One book that you can find. Jonathan, you got a buddy, Chris Henley, who actually wrote this book, and Chris got to be a part of it too.
I'm in it, unfortunately.
Chris, yeah.
I couldn't. I said, I don't know that cameraman you were talking about. He goes, oh, no, I changed his name. And I said, you didn't change mine. He goes, well, I knew you wouldn't sue me.
Oh, that's funny. He changed the names to protect the innocent, except for you.
Except for me. So I'm in there for blazing glory as the frustrated producer taking him to Monaco.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, the name of the book is Starting from the Back of the Grid, Misadventures from Inside Formula One's Flying Circus. And it's written by Chris Henley, longtime buddy of Jonathan. Actually, I feel like I'm a longtime friend of Corinne's. I've known him for 10 years now.
Yeah. Chris Medland, though, can opine on this because he helped write the foreword, and I think he actually helped Chris put the book together.
Yeah, I was, so same as you guys, really. Since I've been in F1, I've known Chris the last 10 years, and I was asked to proofread it when he was first putting the concept together. So one summer break when I went on holiday, I spent my time reading through that book for him and giving my opinion on it. And to be honest, from my point of view, because I know most of the F1 related stuff, and if you're an F1 fan, that's still very cool too. But his personal escapades and how his life was played out was fascinating. It was so cool. I really loved it. So it didn't feel like work, I can tell you that, having a read of it for him and giving him feedback.
He's like a competent Mr. Bean.
Highly recommend it.
He's like a competent Mr. Bean.
Well, you got to read it. And by the way, if somebody wants to win a copy of this book, give us a call. We're going to take the
signed copy because Chris wrote to me today and said, have you given the book away? I'm in England. I'm going to get the copy signed and I will send it to you. So this is a very lucky
Yeah, it's a signed copy. The number's 512-643-5483. 512-643-5483. Third caller will get a free signed copy of Chris
Great
Henley's
Christmas book.
Yeah, great Christmas present for anybody gearhead, Formula One fan especially. So, yeah, check it out.
There's not been many that have a fun look at Formula One, you know?
Yep. All right, so we're going to talk about a little strategy. We're going to talk about what to look for today, but I think we got to start with the beginning of this race because, Chris, if I'm not mistaken, this run down to turn one is over a half a mile long, like 830 meters, like 2,700 feet. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, it's the longest run from pole position to the first braking zone on the calendar.
That is crazy. And Johnny Green, I know we predicted what Max might do, but that all aside, what do you expect going into turn one?
Well, I'm wondering whether the second row have got their tails up after Austin because, you know, you look at, putting out what you just said, factor that in. Factor it's Carlos's first pole this season,
yep.
And he's not got the best of reputations when it comes to the start, nor has Norris, mind you. And you just wonder whether somebody on the second row may just get the run on either of the front row guys. But then again, Verstappen knows the game very well and knows this race could be won and lost into that first corner. What I'm getting at is first man who gets there wins type thing. And I've got a feeling that both men on the front row know that. But if I were on the second row, I'd be happier. So Norris, Leclerc, get ready.
Yep. Chris, I know you had a little trouble with the connection out there, but what do you think? We'll check with you and see if we can hear him.
Yeah, now I've been able to hear all of that nicely, although I can't hear myself think because I'm stood behind the Norris car, which is being fired up right now. So hopefully I'll keep my voice at the right level. But I'm stood here because I want to see his view.
We lost you, Chris. Man, it's packed down there where Chris is. I was looking for you, Chris, because the TV cameras are on the McLarens.
Yeah, they're on one of the McLarens, yeah.
Yeah, so I couldn't tell. But hey, we do have our caller on the line. Let's go ahead and take the caller, and he's won the book. So it looks like Roger from New York.
Rob.
Oh, Bob. Bob from New York.
Rob.
Hey, Rob, how are you?
Either one. Hey, guys, what's going on?
Not a lot. How are you, Rob?
Excited to watch the race and see if I'm just praying for maybe a Red Bull DNF and Norris to kind of jump up on the points.
Don't blame you. How long have you been following Formula One?
I got really into it during COVID with everybody else, Drive to Survive, but like now I'm fully immersed. I actually just finished Gunther Steiner's book.
Oh, good.
So So
the first one or the second one?
Survive to Drive.
Yeah, that's the first one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, you'll enjoy this because it takes you back an era. It takes you back to the early 90s. So you're going to hear stories that you haven't heard before, and we'll be talking about drivers and people that you didn't know, perhaps, like the Senna era and the Schumacher era and the Villeneuve era. And so I think you're going to find it interesting. And Chris is a riot. He's hilarious.
I'm super excited. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All right, well, hang on the line and we'll get your information.
And
Thanks,
it's
Rob.
ROB, right? Because I'm going to try and get the author to sign it for you.
Yeah, Robert. Yeah.
Robert, got it.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you listening.
Thank you.
Leave the producer your details.
All right, well, let's check back out with Chris jumped off. He's maybe going to go get some interviews because his connection, it got so tight. By the way, the TV cameras from Sky are now following Pato. They just did an interview, so Pato O'Ward, we're not the only ones trying to get – I bet they didn't get 7 minutes with him, but in fact, they only probably got a minute or two with him. All right, well, let's talk about what else we're going to look for today because the turn one is going to be huge. The Constructors Championship picture is huge. I mean, what? We're like 40-something points from McLaren to Red Bull down to Ferrari.
44 points between the three of them.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy.
Yeah, and you'd have to say with Ferrari where they are, and where Perez is and Piastri is, again, it's looking good for Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, depending on if Ferrari, let's put it this way, if Ferrari do another 1-2, which I know we have a lot of racing to do, but if they were to do that, they may be in the driver's seat, pun intended, for the Constructors' Championship.
Well, I do know one thing. I was listening to Checkered Flag, and they told me that in the long runs, in the race trim, if you like, Leclerc was the fastest.
I don't doubt it. I mean, I don't know if it's just, you know how it is in Formula One. You just, that last little piece of the puzzle that they get right, and all of a sudden the car just,
well, you saw
blossoms.
We saw at Austin with one incident early on at Austin, and that a very short safety car that changed the whole race because the hards would last that much longer because they got to cool down and they got to go longer. So.
Yep. And another thing we want to look at here is Haas and Gasly both back in the top 10 after great qualifying yesterday.
I'm really impressed with Haas. And like I said to you jokingly yesterday in qualifying, they have a chance to really cement 6th place now. They took 6th place away from RB. Tsunoda messed up for both of them because Lawson evidently was on for a top 10, but so too was Tsunoda. Remember, Tsunoda was 3rd quickest in all of the weekend, and then he threw it in the wall. Now, I know it's, I'm not giving him a hard time. I can't do it. but what I'm getting at is it just really put RB on the back foot, and I'm going to be interested to see what they and Aston Martin can achieve, because even Fernando said I was on for a top 10 because I was on a lap. When the red flag came out. So he and Stroll could be quicker than we think. And certainly RB have got a great opportunity to come through.
It just feels like right now that Haas they're on the ascendancy clearly, right?
Yep.
But they feel stable, they feel calm, they feel like
they've got Toyota behind them.
They now have Toyota behind them. They're, everything is going their way. It's such a weird
difference.
It's such a weird place for Haas, honestly.
Yeah, it is.
They haven't been there, and I feel like not only with you lost Gunther and you don't know what's going to happen, and wow, they've done amazing. You get Toyota, and now they just feel like they're calm and stable. And Red Bull is like RB V-Carb is on the back foot.
Yeah.
And so, those lines have crossed. Haas is now in 6th place, taking that away from them.
Well, their best finish ever in the Constructors was 5th.
Yep.
But
2018, I think.
18, yeah. I don't believe, and I'm sure Chris will back me up here, that it was anywhere near as competitive. That was in the days.
Yeah, good point.
18 was in the days of Mercedes dominance, and the field just wasn't as close as it is now.
Yeah, Chris is he's out getting interviews. By the way, he's just the connection got so bad. We're getting some views of the pit lane in the crowds. And man,
Montoya's out there with Pato O'Ward, so two greats together.
And speaking of the crowds, how enthusiastic are the Mexican fans?
I feel for them
Formula
because
One?
they were desperate for Perez to go well. I mean, the love relationship, the love-hate relationship, I'm sure, is deep because they so want a Mexican driver to do well. And then to see Pato coming out there and basically being given a Friday drive, what a tease. They need somebody to cheer on.
Yeah, and look, Checo's career, he's had a fantastic career in Formula One, right? He's had a race win. He's, been there for I don't know how many years now, but he's had a fantastic career. So the fans, I don't think it's necessarily love-hate. I think they love Checo, and they don't act like there's anybody. They're just saying, they're probably just wanting him to do better. I think that's the bottom line. So Liam Lawson performing, great. I mean, he is just, you got it. When you think of Checo right now, the conversation has to go to Liam Lawson.
Well, I'm convinced, and I'll tell you why. He has been the epitome of professional. When asked to do anything, whether it's put the headphones on at Red Bull, be the reserve at RB, do some media, or drive the car, he's done it with aplomb. And even yesterday, he came back to the pits and thanked the team. And it was almost a bit of a joke because the commentator said, bless his cottons, And yet Yuki was the opposite. Yuki crashed the car, was very what I call petulant at Austin on the radio. And it isn't seemingly helping his cause. And I can understand now why Red Bull don't see him with, the pressure of Verstappen and the big boys. I just don't see him fit him in there. He's too hot-headed, in my opinion now, and Lawson isn't.
Okay, but let's talk about Tsunoda. Right. Everybody's been wondering, why is he not getting a shot at this? It just feels like he's not going to. We don't know that.
And Honda are now pushing for a test.
That's what I was leading up to. Talk about that.
Yeah, so obviously there's the Abu Dhabi test after the Formula One race, and that's a tyre test and a young driver's test. But Honda are now pushing for him to have a go in the RB and just to pit him up against both the race times and a chance to see what he can do in the Red Bull. And I actually think he'll be very, very quick.
I mean, clearly it wouldn't be a huge surprise if Tsunoda ended up in in Checo's seat.
No,
it would.
Well, it wouldn't. Except it would be a surprise to me because I think Lawson is a better fit for Red Bull. I think he's more mature. I think that's as simple as it is. And I love both of them. They both came till 2020 down to the Toyota Racing Series, and Colapinto was in that too. But, I still think that Lawson's the more mature.
All right, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we have a fresh interview with Christian Horner and who else, Casey? And Zach Brown. Back after these messages. Mike Bowles, what the heck, Mike? He just woke up. What is going on? Aren't you on the East Coast? Maybe he's driving that truck out to the West Coast and he's just waking up. Still, it's 1:45 on the West Coast or noon 45. Andy P says, we already got that one. I think we're all good there. All caught up on YouTube. Sure, appreciate you guys tuning in on YouTube. And yeah, check out Chris Henley's book, man. That's a great Christmas gift. I got popped up in I was on Facebook, which I don't spend much time on. It was a perfect companion to that, Jonathan. It was race car wrapping paper that popped up on my feed. And I was clicking, I was like, okay, it's about 5 times the price of normal wrapping paper, but it was pretty cool. I don't know what brand it was, but.
Well, see, what you need for Christmas, I've got it tanked now because I've got the Mercedes already. You need the Lego.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've never seen so many.
Which one? The McLaren?
I've got the Mercedes.
Okay.
But I think the McLaren's the go.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't go wrong with the Formula 1.
Or how about Alonso's 400th go? That'd be a good one.
Yeah, they're showing Alonso on Sky right now.
400 races. How bizarre, huh?
Who was it? I forgot who it was. Maybe somebody listening will know. Somebody said, I'm not even 200. You mean I got to do 200 more? I don't know. Maybe it was Stroll. No, it may have been, but I don't know. Most GP appearances, Fernando Alonso, Kimi Räikkönen, Lewis Hamilton, and then the graphic went away.
Kimi Räikkönen was second. Yeah, Lewis Hamilton's got a long way to go.
Yeah. And we hear Chris Medland. Hey, mic check, Chris.
Hello, team. How we doing?
Good. How are you, Mr. Midlando?
We'll see how long it is. I'm still on the grid.
Okay.
It's dropping a little bit, so try one more time.
I said we'll see how it holds up because I'm still on the grid. I'm hoping it will thin out a bit and allow me to stay connected to you all.
Yep, that worked.
But I could tell you at the end of that national anthem, the whole main grandstand was chanting Checo's name.
All right, here we go.
Wow.
Hi, this is Karun Chandok, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back to Speed City. We're watching the television coverage, and they got Zach Brown on the line, but we also have Zach Brown because Chris Medland just caught up with Zach about 2 minutes ago, and here is the team principal for McLaren.
Zach, can I grab a quick word before the national anthem? Bit of oil behind your car, this looks like. A clean-up job to do?
No, I think it'll be all right. No one seems to be panicked about it.
No, not at all. And long run at turn 1, Ferrari and Red Bull in front. Is this going to be the key part of the race today?
I think it's definitely going to be a big element. Turn 1's usually pretty tricky here. Just need to avoid the chaos. I think P3 is actually a good starting spot from a slipstream point of view. So I think the top 4 cars will win today unless something unusual happens, and then Oscar's got some work cut out for him.
And is it all about who comes out of turn 4 in the lead that might win this race then?
I think so, but I think the Ferraris actually have a pace ahead of everyone. So if they don't come out in the lead, but they come out in one piece, I think they're going to be the team to beat.
Well, good luck today.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Hey,
he's with me.
He was channeling what you said.
I can tell you that the thing behind the car, it looked like oil behind Norris's car.
Yeah.
And the team were working on it for a little while. But yeah, he seemed calm. It now seems much calmer up there too.
But that's his job, just to pretend there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Always the case.
But oil on the ground is never a good
never a good look, is it?
All right, well, we have
just a flesh wound.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we got another interview that Chris just caught up with Red Bull team boss Christian Horner.
I've got Christian Horner here just as a Ferrari fires up behind us, so we might not hear much of each other, but the listeners will hear us, Christian. And front row for Max today. Is it fair to say that was unexpected given where you were going into qualifying?
Yeah, look, I thought it was a great recovery from Max. He missed most of Friday, so to get back on the front row of the grid was an excellent drive yesterday.
And what is the kind of, target from here? Because
there's so much that can happen on the run to turn one. We don't really know what the race pace looks like for anyone. Are you kind of going to be happy with consolidating where you're at?
Well, the temperature's quite a lot different today, so let's see.
And then further back, Checo, home race, but starting so far back, he's been in such a tough run of form. Does he really need to put some show on today to, I guess, secure his seat?
Well, look, Checo out of position, and we desperately need him scoring points, and his objective is to try and beat Oscar today and score as many points he can.
Well, we'll keep an eye on him. Good luck today. Thank you.
Wow, no pressure there then.
Desperately, he said.
A clear message, wasn't it? Here's your target, beat Oscar Piastri. And like I say, the crowd would go crazy for him when Checo walked back to his car. But it's a long way back to his car here. So they had a long time to chant his name and really sing his praises. So he is under pressure. I saw Christian actually have a word with him in the pit lane before the grid anthems and everything like that went on. So there's clearly that pressure's increasing around Checo. It seems to have been ramping up ahead of this weekend. And I think we'll be asking some questions if he doesn't have a good race, does beat Oscar Piastri today.
Yeah, Piastri 17th, Checo 18th.
Yeah, that's one battle I will be keeping an eye on. I'm also going to keep an eye on Fernando Alonso. But the battle I'm really looking forward to is, how about this? Magnussen 7th, Gasly, Albon, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, and Lawson all together.
Well, you know what? Bob Varsha's not here, but let's just run down the full starting grid for the race. You want to do it? You want me to do it?
Well, let's do half and half.
Okay. Go ahead and do the first half.
All right. Carlos Sainz in Ferrari, his first pole position of the season, a 1:15.9 to get ahead of Max Verstappen, which is probably the biggest surprise of all. Max claiming that he had no time to set up the car whatsoever throughout the weekend because Friday and then the tyre test and everything else. So that's a remarkable front row start for Max Verstappen. Row 2 sees Norris and Leclerc. Couldn't get two better athletes to go and chase those two down, could you? Then it's Russell and Hamilton, the two Mercedes. We're not really sure what they're going to do because they've been up and down. They both got 1:16.3s and a 1:16.6. Then it's 7th, Magnussen and Gasly 8th. Alexander Albon is 9th. Could have been better because of the red flag situation. We don't know what the best Williams can do. And then Hulkenberg in 10th. So both Hasses in point scoring positions. That's the top 10.
Yeah, and the 11th position is Yuki Tsunoda after a big crash to finish up qualifying yesterday. He's going to be chasing Nico Hulkenberg right in front of him because they're trying to secure 6th in the championship against each other, followed by his teammate, Liam Lawson, who is now in his second race of his final 6 of this season to try to secure a seat next year. And then Alonso, who's in his 400th Grand Prix. What an amazing stat. And they're kind of lost in that no man's land of the midfield and really kind of racing each other, and his teammate right behind him, Lance Stroll.
Lawrence would have been impressive.
That would be impressive, but
they'd never get him out of the car.
Probably wouldn't be able to get him in the car. Anyway, so in 15th behind him is Valtteri Bottas, which is actually a pretty
very good. That's one of the best qualifying for him.
Yeah, best qualifying. Just had a miserable year for that team right now, the Sauber team. So. Followed by the other rookie, Colapinto, and who replaced Logan Sargent earlier in the year, who's been very impressive. Be interesting to see what he can do from that position. And then in 17th, Oscar Piastri. Wow, we just talked about him, completely out of position. Be interesting to see how he comes through the field. And you can basically say the exact same thing for the next person in the field is Checo Perez in 18th. Got to do the same thing. Got to impress at home in front of his home crowd. And then the last two, Zhou Guanyu and the other Sauber, and Esteban Ocon in the back of the grid, and he'll probably have a chance to fight his way through.
Yeah, pit lane for Ocon.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Ocon started for the pit lane because they changed some components, but he was 19th anyway, so it's not a big loss. But I must mention, actually, you're talking about where Aston Martin are in no man's land. They're at least hopeful that Haas will be looking at RB, maybe a bit of Williams, same the other way around, and that they can just do their own race and pick up some places. But they also think that it'll be really hard for both Piastri and Perez to come through because it's so hard to overtake here. So they actually are predicting a tougher race. And we saw Lando Norris go from, I think he was 17th on the grid last year, all the way up to 5th, but he was helped by the timing of an interruption. So they say that's the sort of thing they're going to need for Perez and Piastri to make big gains. Now, whether that's true or not, you might see one of them do it and one of them not. You might see them get lucky with timing of a safety car or something, but it could be that it's a really long and lonely afternoon for those guys.
Hey, Chris, we haven't talked about the altitude. We'll get firsthand observations. How are your lungs today at 7,200 feet?
Well, Well, just then, even explaining that, because I was marching off the grid and back into the paddock, I was finding that I needed to take breaths a bit more often in between my rapid sentences. So it does impact things a bit. I actually ran the track last night. Did 2 laps of that as part of training. And your body does acclimatize. It gets used to it. As long as you're not pushing it too hard, it recognizes how much oxygen it's getting in. And from that point of view, it kind of acclimatizes and balances out. So it doesn't come as too much of a shock. For the cars, though, the big thing here is overheating when you're stuck behind another car. If you don't get moves done early on, your engine's going to overheat, your brakes are going to overheat because of the turbulent air ahead and the heat off the car ahead as well. So you need to find clear air, and don't be surprised to see drivers dropping 3, 4, even 5 seconds behind the car in front at certain stages to cool their cars down, and then going again and having a lap or 2 to attack and then having to drop back.
Chris, the physics of the altitude literally affect everything in Formula One. I would love to hear a deep dive on that. Maybe we get an engineer on the show one of these days, because it's so fascinating what this does to a race.
Chris, predictions and strategy. Can Ferrari work together? Could they choose a different strategy between their two drivers? What are we starting on, and how many stops?
So I think most people will start on the medium and then go to the hard and run to the end. You could start on the hard and go to the medium, but you'd lose about 5 meters in terms of distance.
Yep.
4 between the hard and the medium on accelerating up to 150 kilometers an hour. So you don't really want to give that away. 1 stop is the target, even though a 2 stop is actually technically quicker because it's so hard to overtake. You don't want to be putting yourself out of position with the extra pit stop.
Right.
So most will go for a 1 stop. You might see someone gambling in the back trying a 2, either starting on the soft or going for a late soft stint. They said track evolution's big here, so the pace will ramp up later in the race as well. Prediction-wise, turn 1, we keep talking about it, is so crucial, but because I can see us having 4 wide, 2 Ferraris, Norris and Verstappen, and there's just so much at play in that scenario, I genuinely don't see how they'll come out of it cleanly. So that top 4, it could be any one of them. There's part of me that weirdly thinks Charles Leclerc could come out in the lead and we'll go and win again. Because from 4th with a slipstream and the others kind of watching each other a bit, if he can get a clean run, or even if he does kind of wait and let a mess happen with the top 3. But weirdly, I think he's kind of in a good spot there. I feel for Carlos Sainz because his qualifying laps were brilliant, but he is going to be vulnerable on the run to turn 1. And Chris, it will be a brilliant job from him if he leads at the end of that one.
Yeah. And you know what? Speaking of this, we've been talking about how long this straight is, but we haven't talked about the speed the cars are going to be doing at the end of that straight, which is the fastest in Formula One. We saw 217, 218, maybe even higher yesterday. So it is a crazy end to that straight because, like you were saying, Chris, nothing works as good. Brakes don't work as good. Everything doesn't work as good because the brakes use the air to dissipate the heat. There's just not as much density in there. So that part is also going to be a huge factor in that turn 1. What about you? Yep. What about you? Well, go ahead,
and
Chris.
You don't get the downforce, do you?
That's right.
It all adds up where you don't get the downforce to then get the braking performance. So, they will be stopping from over 200 miles an hour as a pack of 20. And the main thing I always hope here is that there's no incidents halfway down the straight because of the speed they're doing. So hopefully it's clean.
Yeah. All right, Greeny. We've got about a minute and a half, so we're a little early on predictions, but Chris gave his. What do you think?
Well, it's hard to bet against Verstappen. He's won 5 times here. But I just feel that Ferrari's form, both in the sprint last weekend, where they chased each other around, and then a brilliant race by Leclerc especially, I think Ferrari's got this. So I'm going for a Sainz win.
Okay, I'm going to go with that same theory, but I'm going to go – I have to go with Leclerc just because of what we were talking about earlier, all of the things that could happen. And he's due for a win. He needs a win, actually. And his teammates have been outshining him a little bit lately. So I'm going to say Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz is what I'm going to say for my top 3.
Leclerc. So I went Sainz. I'm going to go Sainz, Verstappen, Leclerc.
And maybe Casey, what was yours, Chris? We'll write it down.
I'm going to go Leclerc, Norris, Russell, and I'm going to have Sainz and Verstappen coming together to take them both out, or at least take them out of the picture.
Wow, okay. Full prediction there. All right, we got 30 seconds. Look, make sure to everybody know you stay here for the race, right here on the same channel 81, Sirius EXPN Extra. And then, of course, after the race, immediately after the race, we'll have at least an hour post-race. I say that. It can be a little more than an hour, a little less, but stay here for the post-race show. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate it. Johnny Green.
Have a good race.
Chris Medland. We'll talk to you after the race.